7:02. Welcome to round two.
Hello.
Can I sit in?
I'll just push it.
What are we doing? Let's call. So let's call the second public hearing on May, what's the 12th? 12th to order. Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to round two. Again, Mike, Patty, Jim, Vicki, and Dan. As usual, Robin is there, and we think she's the greatest. So, not having lived or done one of these before in the 8 years I've been on board, let's quickly go over what we're doing tonight. Tonight, we're going to receive input from the public. First, I'm going to give a presentation. I have some recommended changes for discussion purposes. Most of the board hasn't seen them except in the last 10 minutes. After that, we'll break, and the council will set a referendum. So after this, we will meet again with the town council. We'll make any changes that we need to make. We'll then vote that, present it to the council. The council is then going to set a date, I believe. I hope. If the second referendum fails, the expenditure side of the budget goes to the council. The council, by department, can take anybody up or down 3%. The revenue side is not a department; it still stays with the Board of Finance. We will then allocate any changes within the department that the council sets. They can't set an individual line item. They can't say that we're going to give the police $500 and that has to go to uniforms. That is not their job. Is just to set a number, similar to what we do with the Board of Ed. We set a number, and then we will set the mill rate according to the expenditures that the council sets. So hopefully we don't get there. Hopefully we make enough changes or get enough consensus tonight to go forward with what I'm presenting. So first time around, total expenditures for general government, $5,105,358, an increase of 4.68%. So what I put out there tonight is that we remove the following items. Probate court. This is, if we were to be doing this in town, this would be a capital expenditure. This would not be a budget item in revenue. We'll do that when the time comes for the bill to be paid. We'll go to the town council. The town council can set a one-time appropriation and pay it. The Board of Finance reduced $10,000 from contingency. We've put in the forensic audit in there. Trying not to spike it. I think we sacrificed $10,000 to make sure that gets done. The $20,000 for the forensic. I'm sorry, the fraud. Yes, thank you. The fraud risk assessment. That's the high end. The hope would be that's a little lower. Out of grievance expenses and FOI expenses, $10,000 and $5,000, reducing those. I think they're still important. It adds transparency to how we run our government, but we'll try and get away with less. Wow. So, I used to hate when Ralph did this because it's just a big table of numbers. One thing that I most want you to see is that in the end, it's only 2.45% for this general government. So I think the council could approve that if they wanted as is. It's less than 3%. This allows us to keep part-time help in the controller's office. It allows us to continue the contract service with human resources. It allows us to do the fraud risk assessment. It allows us to foreclose or deal with the foreclosure costs that we are having to deal with now for the first time in years. And it still puts some in for grievance and FOI expenses. And the biggest thing, still keeping with that 2.54%, is we're able to actually pay for our property and casualty insurance. That's the biggest chunk in this whole thing. So it brings us down to $5,813. It's an increase of 123. That's a reduction of 104,544 from our original request. Public safety. This is one of the departments that if we go to town council that we have trouble with. I don't see any great spots to reduce what we have. The majority of the increase in cost in public safety is contractual and overtime requirements for the police department. You just can't wipe that out. I mean, we have to pay our police. They've got a raise, and that's kind of the way life goes. So, fire marshal office, most of this is contractual. There's some safety training and overtime clothing allowance in there. Emergency management, they bought a new generator. They're up $3,000, but that's for generator maintenance. So if we buy something new and then don't give them money to maintain it, that's probably not a great idea. You can see, what's the other big ones? Oh, communication. Last year we overcut the communication department. We cut a person out. We didn't account for the fact that there'd be overtime to fill in some of the uncovered shifts. So we need to bring that up a little bit. Otherwise, I think the fire department is up. Again, it's training, safety-related repairs. We can't skimp on the safety when it comes to police and fire. Public works. The original total was $3,622,486, a 1.46% increase. I think if we eliminate the safety officer, which I think when Charlie heard that possibility today, is vehemently against that. So we'll have to talk about it and see if we can find some other money to shift. The goal, and I agreed with it when we put it in, was, and we call it a position. It's not a position. It's a contract service in order to maintain our files on health and safety, to do some training, to do oversight on spot inspections and that type of thing, I believe. So it's not a person. It's a contract service, just like the HR personnel. So that's one we'll have to talk about. But otherwise, in public works, besides facilities, which is up, looks like a huge amount, but that's because we rolled in all the sewer into one department. It's only up, 0.48%. Health and Human Services, total expenditures of $200,000. I don't see any great. I mean, it's not a huge department. Mostly it's because we added about $200,000 for some additional advertising and the like in the Human Services Department. So, and then, this one, ambulance corps. We don't do much for the ambulance corps, but we are responsible for the building. The building is 12 years old, something like that. Guess what? It needs repair now. That number is just going to go up slightly every year as we start having to repair the building. So another area that, if it goes to the council, I'm going to have to do additional appropriations just to cover the cost within here. Or we'll have to find somewhere else to cut. But libraries, 2.13% increase. Parks and Rec is actually a decrease. I thought I fixed that number. So I don't know what the decrease is, because I obviously typed something wrong. Land use, 4.7% increase. I forget what the big ones are in here, but again, it's a total of $200,000. We got some increased secretaries. We got a little more for historic properties, and the Industrial Park Commission is for Mr. Stevens. We've been yo-yoing his contract up and down. He's done some good work for us in the last year, and we should continue paying him the $24,000 a year that we've been paying him for a very long time. Education. So originally they requested a little over $24 million. We were recommended the first time around $23,952, an increase of $700,000 over this year's budget. I recommend we take $50,000 out of that for a 2.8% increase. Just trying to get under the magic 3% number. Again, this is one I don't like doing any of these, but this is one I don't like much either. Just to maintain the current services without adding anything else. We've got some fixed costs of teacher salaries at 200, special education that's at $240 for salaries, $200,000 for special ed, and health insurance up $375. We're now $200,000 under that. I think we have. Last year was a mistake. Ms. Cruz probably agreed to something she shouldn't have. I would prefer not to handcuff the new superintendent, give him some time to do his job. Again, I want to remind everybody, key numbers right here. The taxpayer-funded portion, for the first time since 2008, we are paying more. We paid more in 2008 under our taxpayer-funded than we have until this year. So the school has not been taking huge sums of money from the town. The problem is the state is not increasing theirs, the ECS grants at all. We are back up to close to 57% funded by taxpayers. Taxpayer-funded is a 1.5 or 6% increase over the last 7 years. 2% a year is, well, not too bad. Just for another spot to take some more money and get it, reach our goal, or one of the goals I had, $200,000 out of roads, take roads down to 690 taxpayer funded. I'm sorry, 181 taxpayer funded, 690,000 total. Some of that is because we still have bonding money. We're still going to do paving other places, but that's otherwise it stays intact. Debt service. The original request is 3.1. We do a level debt service I talked about last time. I think we all came to the realization that all this does is sit there. You can't pay down your debt any quicker. You can't do anything with it. All it does is help us reduce future bonding projects. The money can be better used now rather than putting it in a savings account for future projects. If I was to do anything with this, I think level debt service should more be level debt and capital. You should level those two out as you shift. The problem we're going to have is we keep reducing capitals every year. We don't pave our roads, and then we bond them. Okay? I mean, we did a study, and the study said we need $2 million a year. We're spending $690,000, and we keep reducing that every year. If you need $2 million to maintain your roads, we're forced to now bond these projects. It's not the long-term solution. The long-term solution would be start shifting that back into roads up front, so you don't have to bond every single road project every time you want to crack seal. Sorry, little editorial comment there. So that level debt service becomes $2,978,000, unless I did that wrong. That's the wrong number, anyway. So if you take the 222, yeah, I think it's 2,878,000, not 978. So that brings total expenditures. The original request was a 3.15% increase. This brings it down to 2.04. $39,832,802. So the grand list. The grand list has grown anemically for years. And that's the nature of the town we live in, right? We don't have, all we've done is lost businesses. For the first time, we've actually brought a new business in. The grand list grew $124,000 in tax revenue about this year. Just the addition of inland fuels alone is going to be $100,000. I'm not sure if that's next year or exactly when that hits. One of the problems with the grand list is that it's a 2-year lag. You start a business today, you approach somebody, it literally takes 2 years for that money to start rolling in. It's just the way it works, So, again, we're going in the right direction. We might be at 1% for the first time in I don't know how long in terms of grand list growth next year. But that is hard work, and it's hard work that started in the last, even before under Mayor Fester, continues under this current mayor. We're finally getting somewhere. So revenue excluding current taxes. We recommended $13,306. Wow. $3,806. If I put it in red, and I still can't read it. So this is a reduction of 143,224. So the second part of our problem, we've only grown the budget by a little under 2%, but we've lost a ton of revenue. That's just, there are many reasons for that. Lower state grants, efficiencies or actual success in the tax office. Reducing back taxes means you can't collect as much the next year. So, one of the things I did hear is that the people are very uncomfortable with where we stand because we haven't finished any of the audits. I agree. I wish the audits were done too. Unfortunately, it gets a little difficult when Mr. Burtnagel is keeping the books as to getting the right numbers to the Bloom Shapiro. I agree that until we get those done, we should not appropriate any money out of fund balance. I recommend that we don't take any money out of fund balance. That's an increase of $300,000 that we were going to take out of the piggy bank. I agree. Until the audits are complete and we know where we stand, we should not be spending that money. Okay? Why is this in here? Okay. I'm sorry. The second reason I think we don't want to spend any money on a fund balance is that you said we're going to move the Bristol court out of it. That's going to be additional appropriation. That's $700,000. That's not going to be paid for by the taxpayers. That will come directly, well, indirectly. It's going to come right out of the general fund budget. A voter initiative is about. A voter initiative may cause us to do a forensic audit. So I've expressed my opinion. I think the audits need to be done before we get to that point. But if a voter initiative causes us to do it, that is going to, we can all argue about how much it's going to cost, but it's not going to be free. That will come directly out of the general fund budget. That won't be paid for in taxes. If we have to do it this year, after the budget's passed, you can't go back for a second round. Okay? So those are the reasons I think we should not appropriate any fund balance. The good thing is, the mayor called me, I guess Anne Marie called me yesterday. The mayor's been working with, and I forget what committee you guys told me he was working with.
Real estate.
What?
Real estate.
The Real Estate Commission, okay. Is that a new one? So, I just heard the good news, okay? He's been working with the Real Estate Commission We'd originally put in $50,000 for sale of foreclosed properties. He believes, after working with the assessor and working with the real estate commission, that we can be at $350,000. That is $350,000 in additional revenue. Lucky thing is that balances out the appropriation of fund balance. So revenues basically offset, and it doesn't change. $13,383,806, the same as we suggested the first time. So originally the mill rate was 36.53%. If we do just what I've proposed tonight, or what I put forward, that the amount needed collected by taxes goes to $26,828,996, which leaves me a mill rate of 35.96, on 0.57 less than the first referendum. So with that, we'll get to public comment. Again, please keep public comment short. We have a lot of people here, and I think we're going to have some more debate time after. I don't want to be here for one. And keep it professional, or it cannot be personal. I'll shut you down and I'll go home. Thank you. No applause? So line up. I'm not sure. Do we have a pad? Sign your name and address, please. Don't be shy.
Good evening, everybody. Marty Semmel, live in Southington, superintendent of schools.
Mike's got us.
Oh. Check 1, 2. All right, we're good to go. Again, Marty Semmel, superintendent of schools. I live in Southington, and it's great to be here. Do want to make some comments about the budget in general. I also want to say again that I appreciate every member of every board that works here. Town Council, Board of Finance, Board of Education. I totally understand how much time you guys volunteer to do this job, and sometimes it's a thankless job to do that. So I appreciate all the opportunity you provide for dialogue. I just want to say that I've had the opportunity to be here for about 6 weeks now. I've been in classrooms, and you have an unbelievable group of teachers and staff who care deeply about the kids here. Just to keep it brief, I also want to mention that you already have some issues that I've been able to identify that are not necessarily the way the educational program maybe that you want to be running. For example, 27, 26 kids in elementary school classes. Certainly not conducive. I've seen those classes. They're basically stepping on each other. The rooms aren't small, but 27 fourth graders in the same room is not something that is a pretty thing to see. At the same time, something that's some new information that's coming that you couldn't necessarily prepare for is that the kindergarten classes, the registrations are going well, meaning that you're looking at possibly needing 3 kindergarten teachers at both elementary schools, which I think is a good thing. Kids coming into the school system and going into those classes, but that's about $100,000 that the Board of Education never budgeted for. They were planning for 2 kindergarten classes. So that's, from speaking with the principals, that's something that as you get into August, you really start getting down into the nitty-gritty, but they're already in the 50s. And so many people would not be looking to have kindergarten classes of 25 and 26. If you think that's reasonable, try teaching a class at that size. Peter Cook already mentioned the $822,000 in fixed costs, and you saw the slide up there. That's reality. Those are, and with the $650 that Peter just mentioned, it's $172,000 less than what is needed for fixed costs in terms of moving the Board of Education budget forward. Over the past 5 years, the budget has increased about $680,000. You saw that the education program, in terms of percent increase, I think Peter, you showed it at it was like 2.4% is that final number. And for a significant part of a town budget, the fact that the Board of Education is able to keep that kind of budget to that tight of a parameter, I think is saying something in terms of their ability to manage their fiscal responsibility. If the budget fails, what could happen? I've been asked that question by a number of parents. I've been available every morning. I've been available in evenings, and I told people, and I did this all in the newspaper, if you want to give me a call and ask me a question, feel free to do so, because we're not hiding behind our numbers. We want to make sure people, if they have a question, they give us a call. If I can't answer it directly, we've got folks like Mike Santagata or other folks in our central office who will do their best to find the answer. But if it does fail, and I've heard people use the terms they're using scare tactics, but no, this is reality, and I want to make sure if the referendum passes, doesn't pass, that people know these are the things that are potentially coming down the line. So people don't say, hey, I didn't know that could happen. So for public record, class sizes at the elementary school will certainly not improve. All right, without additional funding, you're not going to certainly see improvements there. They could get worse, like I mentioned with the kindergarten class sizes. You may see, I'm going to, if I'm not going to have class size at the kindergarten level in the mid-20s, so I'm going to have to reallocate staff just to make sure that we're at appropriate class sizes for kindergarten. Offerings at the middle school and the high school would certainly need to be restructured so that we could reduce some teachers. We may need to reduce administration so that we can keep more of our teachers, because as I've heard and I agree, you need to look at the entire system. You're not able to just look at, you shouldn't just look at teachers, you shouldn't just look at one element, but paras, custodians, teachers, depending on where this budget referendum goes, those are things that the Board of Education will have to pay attention to. They're the ones that vote on and make the final decisions about what gets cut. But these are some of the items that's been talked about. You've heard about transportation for magnet schools and technical schools. Currently, the school system picks up kids, basically does door to door. They pick up kids at their homes and they bring them to the magnet schools. That's an expensive way to transport kids. So that's already one thing that's been talked about as a possibility. But you will have taxpayers who will not like if we go away from that. But I want it to be clear that that's something that we could absolutely talk about. But even if the budget does pass, the Board of Education approved a 4.4% increase. The request has been reduced already by approximately $300,000, now $350,000. And those are some of the items that will have to come before the Board of Education. And they can decide on other items as well. They have the power to say, well, take a look at this, take a look at that. And they won't be able to do that until they have a budget, an actual number in front of them. And I mentioned that I'm available. Mike Santagata is available for conversation. I just started hearing people started saying to me today, hey, did you hear that your director of curriculum instruction is getting a $13,000 raise next year? I said, well, that's not true. And if that is something that someone wants to call me about and ask me about, I could certainly answer questions about whether that's a true statement or not. So I want to make sure that as many of the facts can be out there as possible. So that's why I'm making myself available as possible. But I can tell you, you've got extremely caring people in your school system working very hard and want to see the school system become even better. And my goal will always be, and has always been, to help improve the educational programming for kids. My goal has always been to say to myself, if I was trying to create a program or a school for my own kids, what would it look like? And if I'm able to keep my parent hat on and my educator hat on, I feel like I've always done great work. And I think there's some situations in town right now that I wouldn't want necessarily my children to be at. For example, 27 students in a 4th grade class. But we also need to make sure we're fiscally responsible. And I can appreciate everything that the board has to do in order to try to make sure taxes are at a certain point. But it'd be my argument to say that the $700,000 that you put forth in the first referendum should stay there. Our percentage of the education budget is not outlandish compared to the rest of the programs that you have in your budget, and I want to see this educational program get stronger over the years. And I'm sure there'll be other people who disagree with me, which is perfectly fine. But I'm glad and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you fine folks tonight. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amy Battisto. I live in Burlington, but I'm an employee of the board, Plymouth Board of Ed, and I'm co-president of the Teachers Union. Last time I came, I had a nice typed page, thought out what I was going to say. Tonight, I just need to say please. Please and thank you. Thank you for all the work that you have done. Thank you for caring about the students of this town. Please reconsider funding the full $700,000. We have great plans for our kids. We love what we do, but we need your help to do it effectively. So please reconsider putting that $50,000 back in. Thank you.
Hi folks, how you doing tonight? My name is Rob Carter and I'm an instrumental music teacher at the elementary schools. I live in Northfield, but I've been teaching in this district for 16 years and I love it here. I think as an arts teacher that I need to appeal a little bit to the emotional aspect of what larger class sizes mean. We've all seen in the news lately the unrest and rioting that's been going on across our country, and a lot of that has been incited by people that are undereducated or are uneducated and have gotten involved in gang activity and things like that. And it's well documented that people who get involved with gangs are people that they don't feel belong somewhere. Our schools, our teachers love these kids, and we want to give them as much individual attention as we can. I can tell you from a personal perspective, as my concerts are coming up next week, we lose sleep over these kids all the time. And any time that we feel that we can't give every kid all of the individual attention that they need, we can't sleep over it. Hope to forgive a church analogy. Sometimes when I get up on a Sunday morning, I'm thinking to myself, well, should I go? Shouldn't I go? I don't know. Will I be missed is the question that I think to myself. And I know as these kids get farther along in our educational system, whether or not they're coming to school is whether or not they'll be missed. From the arts perspective, we saw last year that we did lose half of our program at the middle school for our music. And this district has always had a wonderful music program. We've won all kinds of awards, but 50% of that was chopped out last year. And a lot of those kids who felt valued for what they were doing with the choral program, they're now getting half of the instruction. A lot of kids did the instrumental program, now getting half of the instruction at the middle school. And I know personally for me, if I did not have the programs that I had in my school when I was growing up, I don't even know if I would be here today. But I want to thank you very much for the hard work that you're doing. My mother always said you can't get blood from a stone. But I know that you guys will do the right thing and give our kids what we need. Thank you.
Good evening, George Franick, Allen Street here in Terryville. First off, I would like to say thank you to the board for your hard work. I know it's not easy. I appreciate, Dr. Semmel, your words. This is something that we've been seeing going on for a number of years, where the class sizes keep increasing. Unfortunately, costs go up, things go up. As a parent to 2 children utilizing the school services, do not cut our services, please. We have a great educational system. We have teachers who care, who take money out of their own pockets, most likely, to buy things. However, as a taxpayer, I implore you, do not cut our educational money. Your educational system is the backbone to this town. It's the reason I stay in this town. It's the reason I don't uproot my family from this town. I understand money, things like that. I get that. Money's tough to come by and easily spent. However, the moment your educational system goes down the drain, so will this town. It's a slow, slippery slope, but we've seen it. Our class sizes are increasing. Our resources are dwindling. You can only do so much with a shoestring. Please consider, as a parent, as a taxpayer, our voice. I appreciate your time. Thank you for your hard work.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Crystal Bouchard, and I'm a lifelong resident of Terryville, Connecticut. I'm a proud parent of a kindergartner, and I'm here tonight to encourage other parents to stand behind this budget and vote yes to get this passed. I want my son and other children in this community to have a chance to succeed in school. Without this being passed, I'm afraid that the community I cherish will not be able to move forward. I understand that everyone is on a fixed income and do not want their taxes increased. Believe me, I am right in the same situation. However, it's a part of life, and the cost of living goes up every year. Aren't our kids worth it? Please vote yes.
Good evening. Chris Simo-Kinzer, 52 Old Farm Road. I'd just like to touch a little bit on what I mentioned during the meeting last week. We all know the Board of Ed got hit with a large amount of fixed costs this year, unfortunately. Now, from what I've heard over the past several meetings, it seems that most people are okay with the Board of Ed part of this budget, mostly. Maybe we need to split the Board of Ed budget into its own referendum. I'm not sure what hurdles that would pose, if any.
It's not legal.
Sorry?
It's not legal.
I guess that answers that question.
The only way you can do that is if you regionalize, and then you can have a separate vote on a regional school, but as long as it's part of your town, part of your budget, you cannot do a separate vote.
Fair enough. I don't want to get into regionalization tonight. So anyway, I believe there can and should be. I'm sorry. Where was I? You just threw me off, Peter. So I believe that there can and should be cuts due to, on the Board of Ed's line items, but this is not the meeting for that. I plan on talking with Dr. Semmel about some of this later on in the week, and I appreciate you opening the door for that in the article announcing your hours there. One thing that really bothers me, though, are the droves of people that come out to these referendums once or twice a year, and they vie for more money, or the kids are going to suffer. Yet the Board of Ed meetings are practically empty all the rest of the year, unless there's some sort of controversy going on. We're going to have a very unique year coming up. Many more people are starting to pay attention to the issues in town, and especially at the Board of Ed. We're likely to have new people on the board. We have a new super, who's still very new here, and whose position I don't envy in the least right now. We have the potential to get some really positive things done, but not by being complacent. I'd like to challenge everyone here and in town who are pushing for this budget, mostly for the kids, to put our money where your mouths are. Start by showing up at regular Board of Ed meetings, the subcommittee meetings. Witness how they're spending our money and praise or reprimand them if necessary. But get involved and be heard. Now, I know many people feel discouraged with how they run their meetings, myself especially. Everybody knows how I feel about that, but I will say that I've spoken with members individually and made suggestions at regular meetings, and I've seen for myself that at least some of my suggestions have been taken seriously. So, if you're going to make the effort to come to these referendums and support more money for education, then follow up by getting involved and with some of the Board of Ed meetings, get involved and be part of the positive solution. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Denise Prostowski, and I'm from Burlington, Connecticut. I'm also a teacher at Eli Terry Junior Middle School. I just wanted to ask you to please support the budget. Thank you.
John Murphy, 385 Greystone Road. First of all, you're asking for more money for the Board of Ed. I don't have a lot of faith in the Board of Education. I don't know where their due diligence was when they hired a thief, number one. A few weeks ago, the town voted the budget down. And enough people came out. There was a record number of people coming out. But they voted no on the budget. But the Board of Finance chose to do nothing about it and just bring back the same budget to the people again. I don't think that's right. I think something should have been adjusted. The gist of the Board of Finance meeting the other night was just send it back. So I don't know, I've been out of touch with specifically what's going on, but that meeting really set me off. So just vote no again.
So let me refresh everyone's memories of what happened last time. We rejected a referendum. The people had spoken. A lot of people said they wanted cuts. What happened was we added money to the Board of Ed budget, and then it passed. So assuming that people voted in a certain way means they just want cuts is something we can't do. Last year when we had a tax cut, we had over 300 people vote no. What did their votes mean? Did they want a bigger tax cut, or did they want more money for the school? I don't know. Assuming we can interpret what a vote means is folly.
Brian Dunn, 19 Carriage Drive. I'm here to talk about a little bit as far as regaining some services for the town and cutting expenses in other places. The one thing I keep having a problem with trying to figure out was seeing the real reasons to cutting the assessor's office to part-time. For me, it just doesn't make sense. I listened to the reasons. The first reason I heard was that the mayor wanted to save money. This cut will save the town $19,000. But if you're looking for cuts, how was it overlooked that the administrative assistant is on pace to make $100,000 this year, which is $45,000 over the budget? How is this not spotted back in January, taken under control? So obviously the move wasn't a money issue. Second, I heard that the mayor didn't think there was a big enough workload to justify full-time hours. have a hard time believing that the administrative assistant has almost double the workload of the office in charge of generating the grand list. Third, I heard that the cut was justified because the assessor used to work part-time hours, so there's no reason why she can't do it again. Well, guess who also used to work part-time? The administrative assistant. And if I remember correctly, the administrative assistant part-time wage at that time was around $32,000. So if you're going to use money savings, workload, and the ability to do the job in part-time hours, the administrative assistant should be cut too. And I just saved the town about $70,000 using your logic. Another thing to consider about the message that you're sending by this, you have a full-time building inspector who accumulates lots of overtime. If looking to attract people to Plymouth, what are families and businesses looking to move and invest in Plymouth going to think when you see a part-time assessor and a full-time building inspector? They'll see a town that has enough burnt up, condemned, abandoned, and blighted properties to keep an inspector busy, but not enough will allow successful families and businesses to employ a full-time assessor. What message is this trying to send? I see no reason as to why this was the only department cut in this budget, other than it's a personal matter and it's vindictive motives. You need to allow the town to have the services of the full-time assessor, and if you're conscious about money cutting, they can be made in these other two departments. Just regarding the Board of Education, I have the reason why I doubt, I don't like hearing these fixed costs are the main reasons. It was in a subcommittee that our intern superintendent said that they had to make up $250,000 that was a gift from the mayor in the previous year to help balance their budget. From what I understand, nobody in the public knew about this until that point. So if you have a chart showing 4 or 5 years of money not being spent or being returned to the sinking fund, how many years was this going on for? You don't know. The perception from the public is we can't trust it. I was in another subcommittee meeting when business manager warned before things got in trouble, I think it was around Christmas time, that the reason why the Board of Ed budget was in such trouble because there was mismanagement. There was poor management. He warned them, you need to get this under control. He says at its current state, he was going to be able to work the numbers where it would be okay. But obviously that didn't happen. The mismanagement continued to happen. So that's what I say. The concerns with the Board of Ed, there's a lack of trust there. I still think there's room for better management there. Thank you.
Melanie Church, 328 Main Street. I'm going to talk about a number of things. One, we're doing a budget without actual dollars, not knowing what actual dollars we have. And we're planning a budget without having actual dollars. So every single thing that is added to the budget that was not in last year's budget, we don't know where the money's coming from. We've done this for 5 years. We always had, we had all this money, and it was found here and it was found there, and it was coming from the trees. But you know what? We didn't have it. And now we're in a financial bind. In your home, if you're in a financial bind, what do? You cut back. You take away. And you roll up your sleeves, and you do without some things, and other things you start doing yourself that you used to buy. And that's the way I look at this town. We don't have the money. We are hurting as a community. I heard a lot of teachers get up here from another town. They're not paying the taxes in this town. We are paying the taxes in this town. We have to do what we can afford. We are the 25th most distressed community in the state of Connecticut. You don't see a lot of people here. You don't see a lot because they're discouraged. They voted no. And then they read in the paper that the budget wasn't going to be lowered. That's why I believe a lot of people aren't here. Now I'm going to bring up some cuts. And I'm going to be fair on both sides. The town side and the Board of Ed side. We still have 2 positions. And if Charlie, I challenge him now to come forward and tell me who has these 2 positions. One is in Public Works for assistant mechanic. It was never, ever, ever posted. No one has that job permanently. A truck driver does it. Number 2, a lead man retired a number of years ago. Never filled, never advertised, never posted. Those are 2 unnecessary positions. We have truck drivers. They cut down the routes to make it more efficient. They finally took out that 1 extra pay. But these other 2 pays have not been removed. You are looking at, and I'm asking, to have those 2 positions cut. The extra position added to the Public Works Department, I believe, should be cut. We have a total of 12 workers. We have a secretary. We have a superintendent. And we have an interim director of Public Works. That is our whole crew. That's why I'm asking for these to be cut. I noticed under the maintenance garage, there's a part-time added in there. We haven't used those things. What we've been doing is outsourcing to Morola's, to MGB tires, to everywhere. So that's why those numbers are up. I say I would like to see, for the maintenance department, I would like to see that for supplies and things to be cut. Because we're way over budget, not because of the supplies, but because we're outsourcing. I'm not going to touch the mechanic because that's in litigation. But there will be a mechanic there, so you can look to cut. Every year, there's extra money and there's extra things bought. And it comes out of maintenance, it comes out of salt and sand, and things are bought. We last year approved a snow machine to clean the roads, or to clean the sidewalks. We ended up buying a number of, I think it was 6 other pieces to add to that. That was not in the budget. But he found the money. So when I hear this, I say that's a padded budget. If you don't have the money, you can't spend it. It still bothers me, that truck. To replace truck number 12, there was one amount given, and I believe it was $75,000 for a 1-ton. The minute it got approved, well, no, that wasn't good enough, so now we need a 2-ton. And then I find out there's only 70,000 miles on that truck. Does everybody in here trade in your trucks when they get 70,000 miles? We don't need that truck. I would like to see that truck cut. Those are the questions that I think the Board of Finance should be asking. The mileage on these things, the hours on these things, the maintenance records. You need to look and see if we need to replace. Replace means, to me, it's no good anymore. When I have to go out and get another car, it's because it's not working anymore. Not to add another one. We have less workers. Also, I'm going to bring up Parks and Rec. I look on here and I still see 8% for an increase in pay. That is a union position. And if you want, I'll go out to my car and get the union contract and we'll see what the original amount is supposed to be. We need to get back to not doing favors and bringing things back to where they're supposed to be. Union contracts are union contracts. I have nothing against a union contract. But also, these departments that have gone over budget this year, and they are not part of a union, should have a decrease in their salary because they did not watch their own departments. I'm asking for these cuts, not to attack, but to bring forward that there's ways of cutting. And there's ways of looking at this budget and going through it and saying, wait a minute, why are we taking a loan for this? You know, that's how the homeowners got in trouble. They got a charge card and they kept saying charge, and then they couldn't pay the bills. Until we know where our money is, we should not be charging anything. I think that is one of the most important things. I would like to compliment the board, and I hope they stick with it, to keep the money in for the forensic audit. We have almost the numbers to bring forward for a power of initiative to turn around and have a forensic audit done of this town. And to me, the people that signed it, it's a vote of no confidence. And they're not doing it for their health. They're doing it because they're worried where are they going to get the money to pay their taxes. I don't know how much longer I will be in this town. I have possibly have a buyer for my house, and I am going to move. As long as the deal doesn't fall through, I will be gone, and I don't have to worry about this anymore. I've chosen to go someplace where I feel I can live and I can afford to live. And I'm sure a lot of other people have moved out of this town because they can't afford to live here. Not because they don't like the town, but they can't afford it anymore. I'm asking you to take a look at this budget and to please try to break it down and be more realistic. Now, when it was brought up at the last meeting, we had somebody get up here and say, for the Board of Ed, we need $200,000 more. And to me, I look at that as the same thing as Public Works. Well, now we need $300,000 more. People voted no. They voted no. They weren't running in and they weren't signing the petition because there was money. They were tired of money being taken out of their wallet. So before you increase this budget, I ask that you decrease it. And any administrator that is not part of a union contract, they do not get a raise this year. If you remember last year, I stood up here when people were getting 30% raises and 50% raises. And nobody cared. They've already gotten their raises. And if they can't live on their money, too bad. I'm not putting anyone down for living in another town, but don't come here and tell us how we can spend our money. We're living on fixed incomes, and we're cutting corners. This is the town of Plymouth. We're struggling to get by. Hopefully, things will change. I don't know when, and I don't know how. But I'm asking you to take a look at all these increases. Any new position that has been added this year in this budget should be cut. We don't need an extra part-time person for the tax office and the town clerk. We need our assessor back full-time. I was in there this week twice to pick up stuff that I needed. And if she wasn't there, I would have had to come back again. We need a full-time assessor. And an assessor should be a part of that real estate commission, because they know what the value of these properties are. And it's not just hurry up and run out and sell them, because we're losing money. We've had expenditures done with no approval. I hope this year that this Board of Finance will take and look every month at what the expenditures are, the totals, and what they should be, and about the averages. When you see somebody starting to go over budget, call them in. There's only a one-time appropriation, and that's being ignored. And now we are going to end up with how much money that we're going to be over? We don't even know. And this is how it just keeps putting us farther and farther in debt. And any department, like I said, that is over budget and has gone over, I was told last year, and I'm going to remind everyone here on this Board of Finance, when the raise was given to the administrative assistant, it was a salary. A salary, not an hourly, a salary. And if you can't get the work done in a timely manner, then maybe we need a new administrative assistant. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to prolong your age. No. Ray Engel, 69 Lane, Chair of the Board of Ed. I just want to highlight a few of the important things that the board has done over the last, I'm going to say, 5 or 6 years. In the last 4+ years, we've had over $1 million in cost avoidance and utility costs through the energy saving programs that we instituted. We've also instituted a solar program that has just begun with a potential savings of about $4 million to the taxpayers. And this coming from grants obtained by our business manager 3.5 years ago, I believe. So that's just another one. We've realigned and reduced our staff by 19 last year alone. We've had increases of $250,000 last year in health care coverage that was done, and thank you, Brian, you were correct. It was paid by the town, but it was in-kind services, which is legal, and it's reported on the EDO 01 every year to the state. So that was a legal transfer that was done. There are also other in-kind services that we do between the Board of Ed and the town of Plymouth, such as snow removals, where we've transferred money from our line item budget over to the town side budget to help work with each other so that we're not shooting each other in the foot. If we're both going to be doing snow removal, at least let's fund each other properly. So that was taken care of. This year, as a fact, we've had about, as you pointed out, Peter, $300,000 in increases in salaries. Special needs costs, we got stuck last year in our last budget, and it was a mistake on everybody's part where we had to eat $250,000 due to a special program that did not occur and will not occur this year. We were trying to do some joint ventures with a local town to try to regionalize. Their superintendent flat outright said no after our budget passed. So this current budget that we're in now basically ate $250,000, and we started $250,000. So that's why, and we hear the rumors flying around. I mean, we're not blind, we're not deaf as Board of Ed people. We hear the rumors flying around about why we froze the budget. Well, the budget was frozen in December because we ate $250,000, and we had to freeze that budget, and everything that passed from that point on was approved by the Finance Subcommittee. Special needs costs have increased by $350,000 this year. They've actually gone up a little more since the last time we reported our increases to the Finance Board. Those increases have gone up because we've gone from 9 outplacements to 19 outplacements at the last count that I had. So those costs are up. Marty had mentioned the potential increase of 2 kindergarten classes that will possibly be coming on.
Some of the good points, though, we've received grants for safety programs that we've instituted at Plymouth Center. We've received grants that we're instituting now at Harry S. Fisher in terms of safety that will allow and increase the safety of our children and help protect our children within the community. We've also self-funded some capital programs on the Board of Ed side, such as replacement of the windows at Harry S. Fisher, the furnace replacements at Harry S. Fisher, furnace replacements at Eli Terry Middle School, window replacements at Eli Terry Middle School, cafeteria equipment at PCS, cafeteria equipment at Harry S. Middle School, and a roof repair at Eli Terry Junior Middle School. All of these have been done over the last 6 years without coming to the town, and possibly may have been a mistake on the board's part in one regard, because we probably could have funded some additional teachers. But we had a little foresight in looking ahead and said, if we don't do this now, the buildings are going to fall down around us. And those new furnaces are actually paying off in additional savings because they're dual-fired furnaces where we can actually save the town money. I believe the last gas bill was about $4,000, Mike, if I'm not mistaken. So the savings has been astronomical by switching this over. So a little money spent wisely up front actually saves the town money again. While I'm here, I do want to squash a few rumors, too. Yes, Brian, he did say mismanagement at one of the meetings, but that was, again, due to our special ed needs. We lost our full-time instructor, our full-time director in August. We replaced that director. She walked out in December. We've had interim people there, and our new full-time director starts the 18th, I believe. Okay, so yes, there was mismanagement. There was mismanagement. I'll stop there. Okay, and a few other little things here. The student, as Marty mentioned earlier, the 5 people that we notified the day before the 30th of, actually on the 30th of April, and we had our last hearing. They were notified because we had to notify of those people because of layoffs. Marty was new. We met the Friday before, and I said we better notify everybody involved. We got together with Mike, the staff, and we came up with potential additional cuts. So those were done because of state law and contractual programs. They weren't done for any other reason. Last but not least, the Board of Ed has always had an open door policy. We never closed the door. You can come to anybody on the Board of Ed. You can come to Marty. You can come to our business manager. You can come to any one of our administrators. If you have questions, you can ask. If one of us doesn't have the answer, the administrators will answer. Mike, we've never held any questions back or hid anything when it came to finances. Mike's always opened the door to allow anybody in, and hopefully when we hire our new business manager that replaces Mike, it'll be the same. We have an open door policy over there, and if they didn't, I'm sure the board would have a tough time with it, and they wouldn't be here long. So having said that, I'm glad everybody that's here took time. They're taking their time. They're taking interest in the district. But I had to highlight some of the things that this board has done on behalf of the students, on behalf of the town, and on behalf of everybody here. And please, take interest in your children also. Go vote. Thank you.
Kathy Kosak, 201 Harrington Avenue. You had the union president up here speaking, asking for increases. I would say to you, I'm assuming you have a strong union, and I think you'll find that most people in this town agree that they don't want to see any cuts in the classroom. So I would say that your union needs to pressure the board to make the cuts in administration. If it needs furlough days, we are a small system. Somewhere last year in their budget, even though you teachers were told you had to freeze your budgets, they found extra money to pay a new superintendent much more than the previous one. The same thing goes for the town side. There's one department that's about $50,000 over its budget. Somewhere they found that money. So you want us to believe that these are bare-bone budgets, yet when there's something that you want, you find the money. So I would say to the teachers union, start pressuring them to take the cuts in administration.
Ralph Zovich, 4 Night Lane. Let me follow up with my good neighbor from 6 Night Lane there. What Mr. Engel mentioned that has been accomplished over the last 4 to 5 years is absolutely true. And it came about under 2 previous superintendents in which you, members of the Board of Finance, asked for cost breakdowns by instructional, non-instructional, operating costs, miscellaneous, and those types of things. And so under that, if you segment the entire Board of Education budget and separate instructional costs from non-instructional operational costs, they made significant reductions. We're aware of that, but maybe members of the public are not aware of that. And Mr. Engel, I personally want to thank you for your service on the Board of Ed, because I know you're a fair parliamentarian, and you give everyone a chance to speak. Can't say that for previous chairs of boards of ed, but the Board of Education is an easy target because they have 60% of our budget. And you may not agree with the way they spend their money, but it is spent legally and with the approval of the majority of the board, and it is transparent, and you see it in their summaries every year. So now we get back to the issue that was brought up earlier about the referendum. What does it mean when it fails? Mr. Chairman, you said it's difficult to interpret. That is absolutely true. But if you could just clarify for the record, because sitting back there, I think there may have been some misunderstanding. The numbers you put up on the screen for the failed referendum was a total expenditure of $40,063,402. Right? That was our baseline that failed at the first referendum. And now the current proposed budget, $39,834,000.
So that is, we are still at the same number you said first.
Yeah.
We have made no changes to the initial referendum. That will happen after, as you know, Ralph. I have put forth some that we're going to talk about after this.
Correct. But the proposes, obviously, any proposals that you agree upon after this hearing, taking into account the public comment and the sentiment that you've heard, you had some numbers up on the screen there that totaled $39,834,000.
Sounds good. I'm looking.
Now, I can't speak for the other members of the Board of Finance. However, I hope that those numbers that you had presented up there, which seem to be fair and reasonable, would be given due consideration in your discussions after this with the meeting with the Board of Ed and the Town Council. I do like the idea of increasing the $300,000 projected revenue from the foreclosures, because now it gives the lawyers a target to shoot for. Okay? Should those recommendations that the chairman mentioned in his presentation be adopted, it would drop our tax increase down to a little over 1.1 mils. You said a net 0.57 mil decrease. Okay. So it's not as if you're just blindly turning a deaf ear to the voice of the people. You have proposals to trim the budget. Some of the frustration that I sense that comes from parents and teachers and taxpayers with children in the school system is that they understand that it's expensive to provide public education. And again, as I mentioned, 60% of the budget is the school system. But part of our problem, our long-term problem, is that our net grand list isn't growing. And 80% of it is residential and personal property. Only 20% is commercial and industrial. Now, you remember the number I gave you at the last public hearing when I said that out of our $756 million grand list, our per capita wealth, if you take that number, divide by the number of people in town, is very low. Well, you look at a town right down the road from us, which has a population of slightly larger than us, but Farmington, and their grand list is $6 billion. Why? Because years ago they made the concerted effort of policy and their government agencies focused on bringing industry into town. Well, we have to do that. We have to have more winners, like Inland Fuel. Job creators, companies that invest capital. And Mr. Chairman, you mentioned that it takes at least 2 years, sometimes longer. Look at those unsold lots in the industrial park. But we have to focus on bringing in those businesses. And the other big question that no one seems to have an answer to, how do we bring more middle-income couples into town to buy property, pay taxes, and raise children? I'm worried that if the increases in enrollment don't materialize, next year, because the state government is under pressure to balance Malloy's budget, they're going to cut the formula for the education cost-sharing grant. It's not only based on our low per capita wealth, it's based on enrollment. So we need those kids, okay? People in this town understand 10 million of the $40 million revenue side of the budget is one grant, education cost share. We can't afford to have not a dollar of that cut. The other issue, which I know is a political hot potato, but since I'm not an elected official now, I can talk about it, is special ed. The chairman mentioned and the superintendent alluded to the costs and the increase in the special ed. Well, we had two previous directors of pupil services, Tom Meehan and Rob Parenti, worked very hard with the previous superintendents, with the chairman of the Board of Ed and the business manager to reduce outplacements. Some of it is their hands are tied. So one of the things that we need to do, and this isn't my idea, this is a previous superintendent brought this idea, we must insist that our elected representatives in the General Assembly change the burden of proof law. This is nonsense where a transient can come into town with no taxable property and insist that their child be sent to an out-of-district private institution for $200,000? Are you kidding me? When our kids, the regular ed kids, average $20,000 per student, that one out-of-district placement costs 10 students per pupil expenditure? That's out of whack. And all the legislature needs to do, by the way, the only state in the United States that has the burden of proof on the town, not the parent's lawyer. We have the ability to provide those services. That's how we were cutting the outplacements. That's how we were bringing those students back into the district. Something changed, something happened. We need to get back to that. We need to bring those outplacements back, and we need to stop paying these private institutions out of district these ridiculous fees. All right, and finally, one final word, just not only for your consideration, but for the public. We have not had a failure of 2 referenda in over 8 years. I believe it was the 2006-2007 budget. Dan, you and Vicki were there, so you know.
It was before you started, right?
Yes, exactly. Now what happens? According to the charter, which is very vague in this, the wording is very sparse. The budget fails the second time, the entire budget, the whole kit and caboodle goes to the town council. 5 elected officials, well-meaning and very earnest, I'm sure, but not going to take the time and effort that you folks went through, line by line, department by department, to scrutinize. They won't have the time. So what ends up happening, there'll be a motion, there'll be some general agreement to either cut or raise the budget. So the point of this is, instead of dumping this whole thing in their lap and going out and spreading misinformation and rumors and saying people are getting ridiculous raises, blah, 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 this is a pretty reasonable budget. If you adopt the chairman's recommendation at $39,834,000 and the mill increase is down to 1.1, we can sell that to the people. Yes, it's still going to be painful for the Board of Ed. They're still going to have to find cuts. Nobody wants to see 27, 28 kids in a kindergarten class. I couldn't imagine that. But if it fails, the idea that we're going to go to the town council and have them rescue us, that's unfair to dump that in their lap, okay? And I would hope they would come seek your counsel and work with you to determine what would be fair. The only limiting factor in the charter, under Chapter 7, I think it's Section 3B or 3C, is that they cannot increase the budget more than 3% per department, excluding debt service. 3% of 40 million is 1.2 million. That's a lot of leeway. So we don't want to go there. I think you have a reasonable alternative, reasonable recommendation, and I hope you folks can work this out after the hearing is closed. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Catherine Rossi. I don't live in town. I grew up in town. I've been a teacher in town for 14 years. And both my parents and other family members still live in town, so I am very familiar, more familiar with what goes on in this town than in the town that I live in. I'm also the co-president of the Teachers Union. Last year, we lost 19 staff members, as Mr. Engel mentioned, and that hurt. That hurt a lot. And we work very, very hard every day to educate the kids. We love those kids, and we do our best every single day, but it still hurt. $822,000 is the fixed cost to move forward next year, and I'm asking that you please consider putting back at least the $50,000 that you're removing from this version of the budget, because taking it away will hurt the kids in this town. And as the co-president of Teachers Union, I just want to say that we work together with all of the parts of the Board of Ed. So I don't want to look to other unions and cut other people, because we need all the resources that we have. Thank you.
Any more public comment?
Dennis Fowler, 268 Townville Road in Terryville. With all due respect to Ms. Kosak, she's too old and out of the loop to have any clue about the way a education system works. To recklessly call out that administrators should be cut is reckless. To cut an administrator from the elementary school, from the middle school, or the high school would be chaos. The evaluation process that exists right now,
Mr.
along
Chairman,
with
this
things
is
like
bullying.
SRBI,
This is not
are
following the rules, and this is
ridiculous.
bullying from a teacher to another member of our society.
Please do not cut any administrators. Please do not cut any administrators. It would make the school system chaotic. It's not doable. Thank you.
I don't think age has anything to do with it. You can be rude when you're young, as long as... And Dennis Fowler doesn't know what he's talking about half the time either. I'm used to his insults. He's made a project out of insulting me.
Thank you.
Melanie Church, 328 Main Street. I forgot to mention, which I had mentioned at the last meeting. We have an elementary school with 2 guidance counselors. I am saying, and I am asking, but we can't tell them where to spend their money, but to cut one. There's 380 students, I believe it was said, in that school. You only need 1. And I still say we do not need a vice principal in that school We have a school resource officer, and we have a vice principal at the high school. Share them. Do you remember when we shared a principal between two grammar schools? We can do the same thing again. We need to cut administration, not the teachers, but cut the administration. Thank you.
No more public comment. So we'll take a 10-minute recess. We'll reconvene with the council. Thank you. Board of Ed. Board of Ed.